In this video, we'll discuss what dry skin means in the context of face reading and things to consider when addressing it. Enjoy. In today's face reading tutorial, we're going to discuss dry skin and what that means in relation to face reading. So, just recently I made a video on acne and what that means in face reading. If you'd like to go watch that, go up here, check it out. Very good video. We'll give you some ideas, and there will be some crossovers with what is said there and what is said here in this video. First and foremost, the first idea I want you to sit with is something called tai-yin. Tai-yin is a relationship in Chinese medicine between the lungs and the spleen. Now, in Chinese medicine, there are lots of different lenses to look at the body, and you want to think of it sort of like a list. When something goes out of whack, you check the elements. Then if you check that and it doesn't really line up, then you go to something called the 6 divisions, which is where tai-yin comes from. So even though the lung and the spleen are housed by different elements. The lung is housed by the metal element, the spleen is housed by the earth element. Even though they're separate elements, separate systems, the 6 divisions and what Tai-Yin says is there is a shared relationship between the lung and the spleen. And those are the two things I want you to think about when we're talking about dry skin. So if we're seeing that, I want you to think of this basic idea. From a mechanistic level, if you think about the lung and you think about the spleen, the lung relates to our breathing process and what's coming in and out of the skin, okay, because the skin helps us breathe. So breathing, and then sustenance and the transformation of sustenance. So what we're putting into our body, how you're breathing, how your skin is breathing, how you are breathing, and then what you're putting in. Those two things are what you want to pay attention to when you see dry skin. So for starters, the easiest entry point is quality fats. Without quality fats, your skin is not going to have that luster and it will be dry. Now, you might be eating quality fats and still having dry skin, and there can be a lot of other reasons for that, but oftentimes what I am seeing is that usually dry skin is a lack of healthy fats. So I'm not a doctor, and what I'm going to share with you here is my opinion of years of research, working with clients, what I've seen with my own body, but always cross-reference this kind of stuff with your primary healthcare practitioner. This is for educational content, and again, my opinion from what I've seen so far. Quality fats, healthy fats. The best ones are from healthy animals. So healthy animal fat, that means grass-fed beef. That means pasture-raised eggs, pastured pork, wild game. Human beings have been eating animal fats since the beginning of time, and we are evolved to eat those fats. But a lot of times with modern agriculture and modern farming, big farming practices, we'll use cows as an example. A cow's natural diet is grass. When they eat grass, they produce omega-3 fat, outer muscular omega-3 fat. That means the fat's on the outside of the muscle. Omega-3 is very good for inflammatory processes in the body, very good for the heart. It's a good, healthy fat. Now, when you feed a cow corn, an unnatural food source for them, they produce omega-6 fats, and we get intramuscular fat, what we call marbling. It tastes very good. I get it. And I'm not going to lie to you. Sometimes I have some corn-fed beef, but I don't have any issues with my skin. That's not where my weak link is. So try not to compare yourself to other people and say, well, Gray can eat corn-fed beef and doesn't get a zit or, have dry skin. So what's the deal? Don't think of it like that. You have to assess case by case, person by person. So quality fats. Now, outside of animal fats, olive oil, coconut oil, and avocado oil are great sources as well. If you get olive oil, get it from a single source, one source. And what that means is the way you check that is on the back of the bottle. If it says it's from Spain, Greece, and Turkey, chances are somewhere from one of those countries, they've likely cut that oil with canola or some other unhealthy fat. Don't do that. So get a single source, something from California, something from Italy, something from Greece, single source. Coconut fat is very good for the skin. You can also use it topically if you would like. And then avocado oil. The company I recommend is Chosen Foods. I don't get paid by them, but they're one of the few companies that has tested very well as being 100% pure avocado oil. So that's a big one. Now, again, more on sustenance, what you're putting in. Processed sugar. I cannot tell you how many people I've seen, who I've worked with, where I find out they're a high processed sugar eater and their skin looks dried out. They look aged and oxidized, and things just look like they're not doing well. If you are a high sugar, high processed sugar eater, chances are you are contributing to dry skin. That can be one of the big ones. So really assess your relationship with processed sugar. Try to get that out. The next one in terms of lifestyle, we kind of move into this, is sauna. So sauna helps the skin breathe. It helps the permeability of the pores. When we sweat, the pores open up and we push from the inside out. We get those fluids out, and that helps the skin breathe. That's a big piece of dry skin, is the skin not breathing well. Something in that lung spleen system isn't really agreeing. You can also do topicals. I recommend beef tallow. There's lots of companies now doing beef tallow. There's a lot of fat-soluble vitamins that go right into the skin with beef tallow. The other one is castor oil. You can do some deep dives on YouTube, other channels and whatnot, but castor oil is excellent topically. For what it's worth, I use beef tallow and castor oil on my face most days. I do tallow first and castor oil after, and that's what I like, and it keeps my skin pretty clear. So those are some big things to think about. Now, when we get into the lungs and the breathing component, I want you to think about something that comes from my martial art training, which was my teachers would say, you got to challenge your wind. You have to breathe heavily through exercise. When we breathe, it's natural elasticity training for the lungs, how well they open and close. And the better your lungs open and close, the more the fluids of the body can diffuse through the skin. So when we exercise, we sweat because we get warm and that sweat comes out. So breathing deeply, okay, through exercise in particular is really where you want to focus. And for the lung dynamics, you also want to assess grief. The lungs house and process grief. So if a person is stuck in prolonged sadness, prolonged depression, they've had a really traumatic something or other happen in their life and they can't get over it, the lungs can get very weak. We breathe shallow, which leads to anxiety and depression. And when we don't breathe well, the skin does not breathe well. So let's move into the spleen. Things to think about. The spleen regulates the 4 limbs. And what that is code for, it regulates all the musculature in your body. So if you are not strength training in some capacity, you are not doing resistance training consistently, the spleen is going to suffer a bit. The musculature system, which likes to be strong, is going to get weak and in turn impact the lung. It can actually create problems with the lung. So you want to think that keeping strong musculature and good breathing, and they go hand in hand often. If we're exercising, we're going to build muscle. So you want to be strength training in some capacity. The other thing that the spleen likes is cooked foods over raw foods. So raw foods for people that have skin stuff usually isn't the best. Cooked foods, soups are great, and things that have collagen in them. So if you make chicken soup, leave it with the skin on. All of that collagen that will come out and it gets gelatinous when it cools down. If you make soup and it gets cold, it's kind of jelly. It's like Jell-O. That is very good for the skin. So collagen is something that you want to focus on, but cooked foods over raw foods and consistent rhythms. The spleen loves consistency of rhythm. So the more rhythms you have within a given day that happen at the same time, the better. Getting up at the same time, going to bed at the same time, eating breakfast at the same time, exercising at the same time, journaling at the same time, meditating at the same time. I don't care what it is. Do as many things as you can at the same time every day, and this is what strengthens the spleen and the lung and collectively the tie-in system, which is what relates to our skin and a bunch of other things as well. But that's a really good thing to think about. So start with one. If consistency of rhythm is hard for you, pick one, something like breakfast. I can guarantee that at this time I'm going to be up and I'm going to be eating. Do that, and once that rhythm is online, continue to add more and do more. The other idea to think about with dry skin is usually an imbalance of yin and yang. Yang is the bioelectricity in our bodies. It's what is housed in our central nervous system that allows us to articulate and gesture and move. That's all the fire, the bioelectric current moving through our frame and animates us and moves us. And then the yin is the fluid, the water, the blood, the synovial fluid. If all is going well, it's kind of a 50-50 allocation of these things working in harmony. But when we see dry skin, usually what's happened is the yin has become deficient and the yang has become a bit excess. There's too much heat. And so too much heat is code for inflammation. And again, this kind of goes back to the sustenance component. What are you putting into your body? Oftentimes it's dietary related, but you can also have chronic stress can really wipe the skin out and create dry skin, because the way the East looks at stress is sort of like internal energetic heat, and that heat creates friction. It's like two rocks just grinding against one another, and eventually with enough pressure, it gets hot and it creates problems. So too much heat, okay, too much inflammation. Pay attention to what you're thinking. If you have a lot of negative thoughts, people that run on the neurotic side, and neurotic is just basically people who are high in negative emotion. If there's a lot of neuroticism and a lot of high negative emotion, this creates a lot of internal friction in the system, a lot of excess stress, and it's not good for you. And the way we nourish yin, one of the best ways is just to slow down. Slow your rhythms down. Move through your house at an easier pace. Don't be hurried. Don't be rushed. Be present with your children. Be present with your coworkers. Take a moment. Be still. Breathe deep. Tranquility and stillness is really how we nourish yin in conjunction with these other dietary metrics. So this is a good place to start. If there are more questions about dry skin, and believe me, this is not everything. These are just basic entry points, but if there's more that you would like to know or things I didn't address, please put them down in the comments below and I'll do my best to answer. Thanks.